Avoidance rarely feels like avoidance in the moment. It often feels reasonable, strategic, even justified. Sometimes the things we run from are not the things we fear most. Sometimes we run because we know exactly what will happen if we obey. That is the tension in the story of Jonah. In the Book of Jonah, God gives a very clear assignment. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it. Nineveh was not just another place on the map. It was the capital of the Assyrian Empire, a violent and feared enemy of Israel. For an Israelite prophet, this was not simply a mission. It was a confrontation with people he would naturally resent. So, he does not question the instruction. Instead, he chooses to step away from the assignment. But he does not just step away slightly. He heads in the opposite direction, towards Tarshish, as far as he can possibly go. The text makes that detail clear. Jonah is not wandering. He is escaping, deliberately. That raises an important question. What exactly was Jonah running from? At first glance, it might seem like fear, but the story slowly reveals something deeper. Jonah did not run because he doubted God's power. He ran because he understood it. Jonah knew something about God's character. God is compassionate, merciful, slow to anger. And Jonah suspected what would happen if Nineveh heard the warning. They might repent. And if they repented, God might forgive them. That possibility bothered Jonah more than the mission itself. So the running begins. He boards a ship, heading away from the assignment. But avoidance rarely stays contained. Soon, a violent storm rises at sea. The sailors panic. Cargo is thrown overboard. Everyone begins searching for an explanation. But Jonah is found below deck, sleeping. That detail is striking. While everyone else is fighting for survival, Jonah is asleep. This is not just physical rest. It is a kind of detachment, a quiet separation from what is happening around him. Even though Jonah is fully aware that he is the reason for the storm. And that is often how avoidance works. It has a way of detaching us from the chaos it creates, almost as if we are not fully part of it. Sometimes we distance ourselves from the consequences of our own actions, or even our inaction. Not always because we do not care, but because staying present would require acknowledgement, and acknowledgement would require response. So instead, there's a kind of quiet disengagement, not loud, not obvious, but enough to remain untouched by what is unfolding around us. Eventually, the sailors cast lots. The responsibility falls on Jonah. When questioned, he admits the truth. He is fleeing from the Lord, and he tells them the only solution: throw him overboard. Reluctantly, the sailors do it, and the storm stops immediately. Jonah sinks beneath the waves, and then something unexpected happens. A great fish swallows him. For many readers, the fish is the most memorable part of the story. But in the narrative itself, the fish is not the focus. It is an interruption, a forced pause. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah sits inside the darkness of the fish, unable to run, unable to move, unable to escape. And in that confined space, he begins to pray. Eventually, the fish releases him. Jonah receives the assignment again. Go to Nineveh. This time he goes. He enters the city and delivers the message of God, a warning of judgment. And something unexpected happens. The people of Nineveh believe the message. From the king to the common citizen, they repent. They fast. They turn from their violence. And God shows mercy. The disaster does not come. If this were a typical success story, this is where the prophet would celebrate and the story would resolve. But Jonah responds differently. He is not relieved. He is not grateful. He is angry. And in that moment, the deeper reason for his earlier escape becomes clear. Jonah says to God, "I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love." In other words, Jonah ran because he expected this outcome. He feared that God would forgive them. The outcome he tried to avoid is exactly what happened. Jonah's problem was never the assignment. It was the mercy that might follow it. Sometimes avoidance hides something deeper than fear. Sometimes it reveals resistance. We avoid conversations, responsibilities, opportunities, not because we cannot do them, but because we already suspect what they will require of us. Obedience can lead to outcomes we do not control, and sometimes those outcomes challenge our sense of fairness, our expectations, our comfort. Jonah's story is not simply about running away. It is about the tension between obedience and the outcome we secretly resist. Avoidance can look like distance, but beneath it, there is often something unresolved. Sometimes it looks like a conversation we keep postponing, a responsibility we quietly delay, an opportunity we step around without naming why. Not because we don't understand what to do, but because we sense what it might change for ourselves or for someone else, someone we struggle to forgive, someone we would rather not see restored, or move forward in ways that unsettle us. So we stay just far enough away to avoid having to face what obedience might bring with it. It leaves a question worth sitting with. Are we uncertain? Or are we simply unwilling to face what obedience might change? This is Beneath the Story. If you're interested in exploring more biblical narratives and the insights within them, subscribe. This channel is dedicated to uncovering them. There's always more beneath the story.